Everyone talks about diving the North Island, the visibility, the diversity, the walls covered in life, and they're not wrong. But here's what they're missing. Right here on the South Island in Victoria, Metchosin, and Sooke, there are dive sites that most divers have never even heard of. Ecosystems most people will never see. Today, we're changing that. This episode is all about diving the South Island. Hey adventurers, and welcome back to BC Adventures. I'm Ryan Swan, and today we're diving all around the South Island. From Sooke to Metchosin to Victoria, we're exploring shore dives and boat dives. We get a chance to discover some of the most interesting marine life right here on the southern part of Vancouver Island, and we get to collaborate with other ocean enthusiasts along the way. Stick around and find out what we find on BC Adventures next. BC Adventures is all about promoting scuba diving here on Vancouver Island, showcasing the marine life that calls this coastline home, collaborating with other divers and ocean stewards, and doing our small part for conservation. This episode is a collaboration. Over the past several months, I've gotten in the water with some incredible local divers and had some amazing experiences along the way. Their passion for this coast, it's all in here. And together, we explored some of the most overlooked diving on this entire island. Every great dive on the South Island starts here. The kelp forest, bull kelp, Nereocystis. This dominant kelp species along the coastline, it can grow up to 30 meters in length, and in a single day, it can add up to 10 centimeters. That's not growth, that's a sprint. It anchors to rocky reefs in cold, clear water, and what builds around it is extraordinary. A living structure, a home for hundreds of species, nurseries for juvenile fish, hunting grounds for predators, canopies that filter the light and transform a dive into something else entirely. The cycle of bull kelp is one of the most beautiful things you can watch underwater if you pay attention. By the end of March, early April, tiny new fronds are sprouting from the rock. You almost miss them. By August, the forest is dense and tangled, stalks twisting around, each of them like vines, the whole thing moving in slow motion right above your head. By the time the fall comes, the growth slows. Kelp starts to die back, and by winter, it's mostly gone. This is a natural, normal part of the cycle. And that cycle, it's under threat. The kelp is dying, but not just from the seasons. Something else is wiping it out. Sea urchins graze on kelp. That's normal. That's always been part of the balance. But over the last 10 to 20 years, urchin populations on the coast have exploded. And when that happens, they don't just graze. They consume. They flatten entire kelp forests and leave behind what marine biologists call urchin barrens. Just bare rock and spines as far as you can see. So what changed? The sunflower sea star, the largest sea star in the world, up to 1 meter across, and can have up to 24 arms. One of the fastest moving sea stars on the planet, and one of the primary predators of sea urchins. A few years ago, sunflower sea stars started dying all along the Pacific coast, from California to Alaska. They were wasting, losing their arms, dissolving. Millions of them gone. The disease was called sea star wasting syndrome, and scientists are still working to fully understand it. What we do know is what happened next. With almost no predators left to keep them in check, the sea urchin populations took off. Marine ecosystems are sensitive in ways that are hard to overstate. Lose one predator, just one, and the ripple moves through the entire web. Sea urchins don't just consume bull kelp, they'll eat almost any kelp they can find, including one you may not expect to see this far south. Stalked kelp. It looks like a tiny palm tree growing right out of the rock, and it grows in some of the most exposed, surge-swept places on the reef. Places most kelp can't survive. Its woody stalk gives it the strength to hold on where everything else gets torn away. But even walking sticks can't escape a sea urchin swarm. You can see here how the urchins have consumed every frond. leaving nothing but bare stalks standing in the meadow that should be full of life. These gardens are more than just kelp. Their habitat, their structure, and some of the most remarkable animals on the coast depend on them. Just outside Metchosin, at the end of September, something happens that most divers on this island have never seen. The hooded nudibranch bloom. They're translucent, ghostly. They look less like a sea slug and more like something that doesn't even belong from this world. They have a large oral hood, a feeding structure. They sweep through the water like a net, catching tiny crustaceans and plankton. They attach themselves to kelp, eelgrass, and anything that gives them purchase in the current. And in the fall, they come in numbers that genuinely stop you mid-dive. This is one of the biggest hooded nudibranch blooms on the south side of Vancouver Island, and it happens right here. Off the coast Otter Point, there's a massive eelgrass meadow just beneath the surface, and in the fall, hooded nudibranchs completely take it over. I dove here with Chris Mullins, a local diver and videographer with a real eye for underwater footage. He captured some of the best clips in this episode, including some that show you just how thick the nudibranch population gets in these meadows, and some cool shots of me too. I almost never get video of myself, so it's really nice to have Chris's contribution. You can follow Chris on Instagram at Mullen Dives. Eelgrass grows in the sand, in the shallows, often just a few meters down, and is one of the most important habitats on this coast. It shelters juvenile fish. It stabilizes the sediment. It's a nursery and feeding ground all at once. But look down in the meadow and you'll find creatures that have nothing to do with eelgrass at all. Split branch feather duster worms, clusters of them growing right on the seafloor. They look exactly like flowers, bright, delicate, and if you get too close, they vanish, pulling back into their tubes in a fraction of a second. It's a reflex faster than you can blink. Hard to believe that these are worms. Further along the sand, Anastasia is hovering over something much bigger. A giant pink sea star, a beautiful animal, a serious predator. These stars hunt clams, prying shells open with slow, relentless force. And then there are sea pens, soft corals, shaped exactly like feather quill pens from a few centuries ago, which is exactly how they got their name. You can see them here at Clover Point in Victoria. The Pacific Northwest isn't known for its corals the way tropical reefs are, but we do have them. They're soft, they're delicate, and if you're not careful with your buoyancy, they're easy to damage without even realizing it. Up north, pink soft corals are everywhere. They can take over entire reef walls, a wash of pink and red that makes the whole site feel like it's glowing. Down here on the South Island, it's rare, but it's here. There are clusters if you know where to look, and when you find them, they stand out. Little bursts of color against the rock, deep rose, warm red, like berries growing straight from the reef. One of the best places to find these clusters is a dive site unlike anything else on the South Island, and the most dramatic part is, it isn't on the reef, it's inside it. Swordfish Island. There's a swim-through tunnel here that channels water at serious speeds when the tide is moving. That current is exactly why the walls inside are so alive. It's delivering nutrients directly to everything growing on the rock. Plumose anemones, pink soft corals, encrusting sponges, invertebrate life packed in so tight, there's barely a bare patch to be found. Out on the main reef, Solaster sea stars light up the site. They're some of the most vibrant animals in this ecosystem, multi-armed, boldly colored, and built for covering ground. They're active predators, hunting mollusks and other sea stars across the reef. Hard to miss, harder to ignore. But let's talk about the white plumose anemones. White plumose anemones are one of the defining creatures when diving the Pacific Northwest. They're everywhere, and somehow, they never get old. Clusters of them on a wall in good visibility, That's one of the best backdrops this coast has to offer. There's something almost otherworldly about them. Hundreds of white, feathery columns just sitting in the current, waiting. Ogden Point Breakwater in Victoria has some of the most well-known clusters on the South Island. But last fall, I found a wall on the west shore that stopped me completely. I was diving with Chris Sampson and Fred Lapierre. We originally had gone out to do a recovery cleanup dive. Along the way, we explored a reef that neither of us expected. White Plumose anemones packed onto the wall, but alongside them, sulfur sponges, bright, yellow, almost fluorescent against the white. Up north, sulfur sponges are common on walls like this. Down here, finding them is something else. The two together, yellow and white, stacked and dense, it's one of the most visually striking walls I have dove in this area. But this reef wasn't just beautiful, it was telling us something, and not everything it had to say was good. This site is close to shore and close to a development, and underneath all that beauty, the evidence was hard to ignore. Fresh rubble and rock that had clearly been disturbed. Cut up tires scattered across the bottom. These are the kind that get used in blasting operations to contain the force of an explosion. I don't know the full story, but I know what it looks like, and I know it doesn't belong there. I managed to pull out an abandoned crab trap from that dive. It's a small thing, but it is something. I've been meaning to go back and do a proper cleanup. It's not the easiest site to get to, but it deserves the effort. I try to leave every dive site better than I found it. And in the middle of all this, tucked into a crack in the wall, was a juvenile wolf eel. Wolf eels are fish, not eels. Though the confusion is understandable. They hide in crevices and holes in the reef, and when they're young like this, they're striking, colorful, curious. When they're mature, they turn into a mottled gray that makes them look ancient and wise and slightly terrifying all at once. This one let me get close and hold my position. These encounters are why I dive. If you're into freediving, check out Fred's shop in Victoria, East to West Freediving. And if you want to see some really cool videos on freediving in the Pacific Northwest, check out Chris's YouTube channel, PNW Sampson. Chris has been doing this a long time, and he's one of the best influencers on the island when it comes to diving and marine life. Speaking of encounters, there's one more animal I want to show you, and that's the reason I keep coming back to Otter Point every single time. I love diving in Otter Point. The kelp is dense, the reefs are layered, the visibility can be spectacular, and if the conditions are right and the timing works, you might see one of the most intelligent animals in the ocean moving across the reef like it owns the place. And that's because it does. The Giant Pacific Octopus, the largest octopus species on Earth, can reach 9 meters arm span, and they can weigh over 70 kilograms. They live in rocky reefs in the Pacific Northwest, hunting crabs and clams and fish with their 8 arms and 9 brains that are genuinely remarkable. That's right, 9 brains. They have a central brain, and each arm has its own brain too. They're curious, they're intelligent, they solve problems, they recognize faces, and they play. If you've ever looked into the eye of a giant Pacific octopus up close, it looks back, and there's something behind that eye. I was diving with my buddy Leo when we found this one. It was out, moving, a big animal, easily one of the larger ones I've ever encountered, and it caught us completely off guard. I had my camera out, trying to get the shot, and the octopus reached out and grabbed it. Just reached right out and tried to steal it. Not once, but a few times. Curious, friendly, completely unbothered by us. That's the thing about octopus encounters. You can't plan them. You can't schedule them. You show up, you pay attention, and sometimes the ocean gives us something just like this. That moment made the whole dive. The South Island doesn't get the same attention as the North. It never has. But when you've seen this episode, kelp forests, pink soft coral, hooded nudibranch blooms, wolf eels, plumose anemone walls, and a giant Pacific octopus grabbing your camera, that's not second-tier diving. That's some of the best diving anywhere on this coast. It's also diving under pressure. Kelp forests that make these dives possible are struggling. Sea star wasting syndrome wiped out the sunflower sea star that kept sea urchin populations in check. And urchins are doing what urchins do when nothing is there to hunt them. They graze and they don't stop. There are efforts underway to address this. In 2024, researchers at UBC identified the bacterium behind sea star wasting syndrome, and the Hakai Institute has found surviving refuge populations in BC's fjords, with breeding programs now underway. One thing I've noticed over the last few years of diving, I'm starting to see more sunflower sea stars on each and every dive. In the Saanich Inlet and along the coast, they're starting to become more common on dives, which is an excellent sight to see, because seeing more sunflower sea stars means that one day those urchin populations will be in check once again. The South Island is worth diving, it's worth protecting, and it's worth showing up for.
And we'll see you next time when we take a deep dive on BC Adventures.